Welcome everyone to another episode of Runners Roundtable. Season 4 is featuring conversations with inspiring female runners. And today I'm joined by Kelsey Long and Rebecca Bowman. And I'm really excited to speak to the two of you. One, because the connector is Coach Becky Croft, and she is such an incredible human who connects me to other incredible humans. So the minute she tells me, Steph, you need to look at this or check out this person, I immediately shift my gaze to her and wherever she's telling me to look. So I just want to shout her out there for making this connection between all of us. And I'm going to start first with the question of just how both of you got into running individually, and at what point did your paths cross to where you are today? Whoever wants to take it can go.
Okay, so this is Kelsey. My pronouns are she, her, and I got into running because of my dog. I hated running. I did it as a kid with sports and whatnot, and I played soccer, but getting out for a run was not my thing. But I had a dog that I loved very much, and she was being destructive. She needed her energy to be let out. And so we went for walks, but then it took too much time. So I was impatient. So we just started running. And that's how it started for me. Just taking my dog for a walk, for a quick run. Then I was like, okay, I kind of like this. This is okay, not bad. Then I started entering, local 5Ks. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And it grew from there. And I remember I decided I wanted to get serious about it. I wanted to do distance. So I hired a run coach and I told him, I'm going to do an ultra marathon. And he laughed at me. And I soon fired him. But that had been my goal for the longest time, is to do an ultra marathon. And it was just so daunting for me because I didn't know anyone who did it. So it was something I would be doing entirely on my own. Until I met Rebecca and she kind of helped me get there.
Hi, my name's Rebecca. My pronouns are she, her, and my story is a little similar to Kelsey's. I actually was laid off from my job and I lost my dog in the same week, which is a lot, right? And so I was like, well, I can't afford to go to the gym anymore. And I'm also moving through this grief. I hate running, but it's my option right now. So I started running, and long story short, I actually ended up leaving Texas. I bought a van. I lived out of it for several years. And early in that journey, I found Kelsey through Dirtbag Runners. And then we met in Utah for the first time in 2021. And we both had these same dreams and visions. I had just finished my first 50K ultra, thinking I will never go beyond that distance. And then November 2022, Kelsey and I run our first 100K together with a team that we founded that is now a nonprofit. And so it's been just incredible to be on this journey with her. I cannot imagine. I was running alone for so long, and now we're running together. We're running with a team. And it still blows my mind sometimes. When her and I have our training runs, our training weekends, even just like 15 miles sounds absurd to me, but then we'll go out and we'll run bigger distances, and doing it together it just makes it that much more special.
So both of you came to running later in life, and not really because you're like, oh, I love this experience. Kelsey, you're the first person who's ever told me I started running because of my dog, which I absolutely love. And I'm curious though, what was it about the ultra community or the ultra running aspect of it that drew you to it? Because I myself started running with a Couch to 5K program, and then I joined a run club and half marathons. And I thought I was good with half marathons. I only did a marathon because I entered the Chicago Marathon Lottery and got selected. And I've since done marathons, but I, for the longest time, thought I don't want to drive 26.2 miles. Why would I want to run that? So I'm curious how both of you were like, that's the goal I want. And what did you know about those ultra distances before you even started?
So as a baby runner, I really liked being able to go out and see amazing things using your own 2 feet. That was what drew me to it. And as I matured as a runner, I found other things to run for. I got connected with Jordan Daniel Whetstone of Rising Hearts, and the way she uses her running platform to bring awareness to issues that affect Indigenous people, that really inspired me. So, and then like Rebecca said, we met through Dirtbag Runners, which is a worldwide community of people who like to be outdoors. But we also recognize that not a whole lot of people look like us in that community. And so that was one of the reasons we started Dirtbags Run, was because we wanted to see more people like us out there on the trails. So being inspired by Jordan to create this team with Rebecca and really try to bring have a more diverse community for the outdoors. I think that was that's why I continue to be out there, and it's a great place. Like, I love being outside. I love pushing myself. And when I was doing the 100K, I had a pacer, one of our other teammates, Ayako, and just like being so laser focused to get to the finish line, and cursing a whole lot. But like, that's part of the experience, is just like, is doing the hard thing, because I don't know, it makes my soul happy.
How about you, Rebecca, with the ultra distances?
Yeah, I had no idea. I think when I ran my first 25K, which was also my first half marathon, I trained for it like crazy. I didn't know there was anything beyond a marathon. But something that I love to share is, like echoing what Kelsey said, we grew up, and my family, our community, we didn't go run on trails. We didn't rock climb. We didn't do these sports that are so fulfilling and incredible. But I like to say that I'm actually the second ultra distance mover in our family. My great grandmother came from Mexico alone with her 5 children to Texas. She traveled hundreds of miles on foot. And that's something I really carry with me to today, because I have the privilege and joy of running out on a trail. She did it because she had to. And that's so incredible and inspiring to me. And then Kelsey came along and showed me, hey, you can use running for activism. You can use running for social justice work. And it just opened up this world for me that I was oblivious to. And now it's such a joy and honor to engage in the things that we care about, and in organizations that we believe in, that we know are needed here, like Rising Hearts. And we can use movement for both joy and purpose. And yeah, it's been such a gift. I give Kelsey credit for literally everything that has come into my life.
I love what you shared, and I'm gonna kind of go a little bit deeper with that. And both of you, how does running connect to either honoring or healing your lineage?
I mean, Indigenous runners have been around forever, and it's in my blood. I don't think I growing up I knew about athletes in my family, but it never really they after school they did not continue to pursue sports because it wasn't available to them. But it's always been in our blood. Navajo, I'm Navajo, and there is the Navajo Long Walk, the relocation of the Navajo people by the government. And that was one thing that I think about when I'm doing a hard training run. This is something that my family has, they survived and have done so many great things for me to be here. And this distance is not going to conquer me, because I have them with me.
I think it really helps us to stay connected to these stolen lands that every single one of us recreate on. I myself am not Native American, but my mother's side, they're indigenous to Ecuador, Colombia, and Mexico. And growing up, she always taught me here in America to honor the Native Americans that lived here, the lands that we lived on. And it's such a beautiful way to explore that connection. Like Kelsey said, we have a choice. We stay out for 12, 13, 14 hours on these trails because we have the privilege and accessibility to. And I think it also helps us heal our generational trauma. It's something I think a lot about when so I'm also biracial. My father's white. And I think a lot about, what makes me Mexican, what makes me a Hispanic woman. It's not the trauma that we come from. Violence trauma is not a part of our heritage. It's a product of, the systems in place, unfortunately. And so I also like to celebrate and honor what makes us who we are. I like to also move away from the violence of our past and celebrate just the incredible community that we have. And I think sometimes that's really important to remember too, is move with purpose and intention and heal, but don't forget to also celebrate, because we have so much to celebrate and give. And I think being out on the trails also reminds me of that.
So not the flip of the question, but just more roots from that question. Being the first or second in your lineage to be able to engage with the outdoors in the way that both of you are doing, how are you paving it forward for the generations to come? And I have a feeling that's going to kind of tie into Dirtbags Run, but in general, how do you pave it forward, right? I love the idea that each of us is healing 7 generations in the past to set up the 7 generations in the future. Where do you see yourselves today in the story that those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations in the future are going to say about you?
Well, I don't have kids of my own, but I have a niece and 2 nephews. And part of the work that I do is for them, if not all for them, because my niece is incredible. Like, I am constantly blown away by her. She's just a great little personality, and I can see so much promise in her future. And I would hate for anything to deter her from her dreams, or to make her feel like she is not able to do something because of the color of her skin.
Yeah.
I also do not have children, but I imagine that 10, 20 years from now, I start to show up to start lines still with Kelsey, or watch or listen to big races like Western States, and there are predominantly people of color. That's what I want to see. That's what I hope to see. I think we can get there. And that really is something that motivates me. My mom too, I have to give her a lot of credit, because she used to trail, or she still does, but she started trail running and she didn't know that trail running was a sport or a thing. I think it just goes back to it being in her blood as well. And she always tells me that watching what our team is doing, it's, I think it's just not only important to folks younger than us, but people like her who also didn't have that to look to, when they were growing up.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that both of you are like, I'm not a mother. And I point that out because that what you're creating is you're still birthing something, right? You're still, I'm sure both of you have put in a ton of work in creating the group and the team and fostering that community. So even though you don't have biological children, there's still things that you're birthing into the community that do ripple beyond you. I often say that we're all one connection away from falling in love with this sport. And what I'm hearing you both say is that you're both the spark for people, right? Even if it's your own mother. And I think there is a birthing, mothering energy with that of who are you ushering and bringing into the sport and helping them discover that there is more to find out about themselves. I find that, and this will be a question too that I have for you all. We talk about often, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, that running these bigger distances, particularly marathon, and I'm going to assume, which is why I'm asking this question, you're changed at the end of it. You cross that finish line and you are a different person. That version of you that started is totally, totally different. So I'm curious, has that been your experience? And if so, what has been the biggest transformation you've seen within yourself?
So I have trained with Coach Croft for a couple years now. She helped me with my, well, how many am I on now? I think my 4th and 5th marathons, and then the ultra marathon. So on my 4th marathon, I just didn't have a great cycle. I don't think I was really, my heart was really in it until I got to that start line. And then I was nervous, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just drop to the half, it'll be fine. And I'm texting her along the way. Oh, and that was also the one where I fell flat on my face at mile 3. So that was fun. So I'm texting her throughout, and I get to the split where I have to make the decision if I'm going to do a half or a full. And I text her and I said something along the lines of, okay, I made my decision. I'm going to go for it. And I go for the full. And it takes me forever to finish, just because, like I said, I wasn't too very strict with I didn't stay on my training plan, and it was just harder. So I finished it, and there she was at the end to cheer me on, and got emotional with that. And then she helped me through the ultra marathon in November, and then the last one I did in April. And after each one, I do feel that transformation, because it's, I don't know, it's, I've like I said, I've done 5 marathons so far, and after each one is just this, I guess, newfound confidence, or just like, wow, I can do this, because while you're in that race and you kind of hit the wall, it's just like, I can't do this, but you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and then you finally cross that finish line, and there's that grand realization. It's like, oh yeah, I am this strong.
Yeah, I think for me, or not that I think, I know the very, very biggest thing that happened and still happens is one of my favorite quotes says, I didn't come this far just to come this far. And last summer, Kelsey printed out stickers for our whole team. And it said, we did not come this far just to come this far. And I looked at it and I thought, we is not something I am accustomed to. I didn't know how to lean on people or ask for help. And that was something that was going to be very detrimental in my life. And I was going to, unfortunately, like many people, learn the hard way, hit low points that I didn't think I would make it through, or trauma I didn't think I could get past. And Kelsey and our team and the trail running community taught me, not only are you not alone, but you don't have to do it alone. And it's really, really scary to trust and lean on people. But when you do, the amount of healing that happens is it's nothing that you could have done otherwise. And it's such a gift to yourself and others. And it's something I still am learning, but how far I've come because of this community and trail running is huge. And so now I'm like, okay, we did not come this far just to come this far.
I love that sentiment. And that's something that applies outside of running. For those of you who know me, I've been going through housing issues for the past 3 years, and the phase where we are right now, it feels like mile 25 of a marathon. And on the daily, I tell myself, I didn't come this far to only make it this far. Like, I can keep moving forward. So I love that you brought that up, because I feel like it's just synchronistic for me to hear from someone else's mouth that running is a metaphor for life, and running truly does teach us how to cope with life off the run. So we've talked about the team, but now I want to know, like, specifically about the team. How did it come together? What have you all been up to since it came together? And then so tell me about the team. What have you all been up to? And then what are you all working on looking forward?
Yeah, so I mean, it all started with just an idea. No, it was a dream before it was an idea. Just something, and I told Rebecca about it, and then we had a conversation with other runners, and then we're like, okay, let's do this. And so we started thinking, how can we make this happen? So that we started early 2022, two?
2021.
Well, it was the end of 21, and then we actually started making, doing things in early 2022. And the team came together. We put out a call for applications and learned about so many amazing people out there. We selected a team of 20 total, 21. There, and we have a core team, which is Rebecca and I plus 3 other people. And so that's who is doing kind of the decision making for the team. So yeah, we have our runners, and now we're looking for an event, and we find the Active Joe running company in North Texas, and they have the Dinosaur Valley Endurance Run. And just everything about that race company and their race director, it was absolutely amazing. Just an amazing human who really wants to change trail running. so we connected with her and she worked with us. And so what we offer the team is the team will pay for registration, for travel, lodging, food, and I think those four things, so that we remove financial barriers for the runners so they can attend this event. So that's what we promised them. And then we started looking for sponsors so that we could deliver. And we had an amazing first year at Dino Valley. We had, I think, 9 people finish the 100K distance.
Wow.
And I think more than half finished an ultra marathon that weekend. And we have other runners who prefer the shorter distances, and they're still welcome on our team. We don't require everyone on the team to be an ultra runner or want to be an ultra runner. We just want you to find joy on the trail, to find that community. So that is what the team does, and what we've done.
Yeah, I love to share. So our mission statement is Dirtbags Run. We are a team of Black, Indigenous, and people of color trail runners seeking to expand our presence in the sport while honoring Indigenous lands and amplifying diversity at races and beyond. So when we go to partner with these races, they have to be aligned. Libby was star. We love her so much. She, we like to include the Rising Hearts land acknowledgement, or at least have the race make an intentional connect or bring in, ways that we can honor these lands that we are on. That we want to make sure that they have at least some sort of DEI plan in place, or that they're trying. Maybe we are their first step. That's okay. Everyone has to start somewhere. As long as they're open and kind and willing to hear from us and partner with us, we're, game for it. We only choose races that also have non-binary categories. We have non-binary teammates. That's really important to us too. We became a nonprofit this year, which was huge. We picked up another sponsor. Our sponsors are Tailwind and Arc'teryx. And that was really amazing that such big brands were going to give us a chance. We're new, but we're not new to the sport, and our impact is growing. We're in talks right now with a shoe company whose name I can't share yet, but they have really struggled on the equity and diversity and inclusivity initiatives, and they're willing to hear from us, which is great. And this was after I had to have some tough conversations with them, thinking they would just say, see you later, we have no interest. The social was pretty atrocious. And they were like, okay, yes, here's a seat for you and your team. Let's talk about this. And I think just even that happening, I'm not sure where it will go. We hope for the best. We're, giving them a chance. But the fact that we are even able to have these conversations, I think has been really huge. And it's not easy. I will say, like, for anyone out there, it is scary. I think Kelsey and we get nervous all of the time. And I think that's part of having each other and the team and running too, is moving through that anxiety. At least for me, I'm not a leader because I'm an expert by any means. If anything, I am constantly learning from my team, but I can be a leader because I have, my privilege allows me to have a voice and reach out and fight for the things that I believe need changing.
So what do you say to race directors, to companies that will say this is and I'm putting quotation marks around this, a big ask to do land acknowledgements and have DEI. What do you say to those people? Because I feel like the pandemic was very eye-opening for a lot of organizations, and a lot of people made a lot of promises and on social media or in newsletters, it looked really great. And there was hope of the potential of things changing, and then things have just kind of died out. So for people who are listening to this podcast and hearing you, and they're like, no, we can't do that. Like, I think of something, what you said, like a land acknowledgement. I'm already picturing people getting all ruffled like feathers and worked up over something like that. What do you say to them?
I think that I think first and foremost, at least one person in the company needs to care, needs to have empathy. So I would say it has to come from some internal, genuine desire to change, or else it's going to be very performative, or you're going to create a scenario that furthers what we're trying to, fix, as in it's still going to make it feel like an unwelcoming space. So I think at some point, someone in the company has to have this genuine desire, even if they know nothing, even if they are in the baby stages. And once they have that, for me, I honestly believe there's just no excuses. It's not hard. There are more people of color in this country than not. And there are plenty of people to amplify, to hear their stories. So I think that as long as just someone's open and willing to listen, the rest of it is actually fairly simple. But I don't know, I guess that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of pull us back, because we've talked about race directors, but now I want to know more about the runner experience in terms of what you two have experienced at these races. And it's a two-part question of what is the state of it? Like, what was the state of it that you all sought to change? And what makes a space unwelcoming at these races?
Yeah, um, I mean, I have, with my running, I am kind of the only person, who in my area, in my group of friends who does this. So I'm always out there on my own. And it's just something that I've gotten used to, being the only person, or, going into a space where I don't know anyone, which is really hard because I live in Oklahoma, and I run in Texas a lot. And I had an experience where the race director made a statement about transgender, non-binary be welcome at their races, created a new category, did some really good stuff for the community. And the backlash for that was one of the runners throwing flags that talked about a former president on the course. So to basically say, you're not welcome here. I am not transgender or non-binary, but it still affected me because that president doesn't like people who look like me, or former president.
And that was another runner, right? Because sorry,
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yes.
I've done some races where it's not runners, but it'll be spectators out with like signs or flags. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Like let us just be happy and run. So, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it was a runner because this was a trail race. It's only on the course where spectators aren't allowed. So I can't imagine a spectator went out there and did that. It was just a runner who decided to throw them away and throw them down on the ground. And so what made me the most upset was I'm a back of the packer, and those were still on the ground when I came around. Why the F didn't anyone else pick those up? Was no one else bothered by it? If so, there's another problem we have with the community. But that was really frustrating, to be the person who had to pick those up. Another incident I had was a race, this race that a sponsor gave me a comp entry to. I was excited, and I'm little and I carry my weight around the middle, so I have dark skin, so it was just kind of hard. I don't look like everyone else. And so this was a big race, and I'm going up a mountain, huffing and puffing, and I see a photographer, and I'm just like, okay, I get to, they're going to take my picture. I smile real big, and like, this is nothing. And they put their camera down. And that keeps happening every time I come across a photographer. So, those are the kinds of issues that we have had to deal with, or I mean, I did, but I assume it's other people of color have these same issues, because I can't imagine I'm the only person out there who has to deal with this.
That is so angering. And I just want to thank you for sharing that. Something I've shared, I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast, but definitely in conversations I have with my friends. And I live in Miami, Florida. And in Miami, Florida, I'm the majority here. Like I'm a Spanish speaking Latin woman. I mean, you can see it. My last name is Diaz. Like that's the majority here. And that is something that when I go to races here, like I hear what you're saying and I'm like, oh, I've never experienced that at a race in Miami, because everyone does look like me. Everyone is very similar to me. And I can't remember. I don't remember if it was a podcast or with someone else where I was telling them, I'm like, it was with a friend. Never mind. It was with a friend. It was a friendship podcast, which is what I call really long voice notes. And I was telling her, I'm like, I live in Miami, so I'm part of the majority, but all it takes is for me to go one county over in either direction to realize that I'm a minority. And it's really, really jarring, because all of a sudden the sense of safety that I had here, where I feel like I move about very freely, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not as free. Like I need to be a little more careful with my words, my attitude. Like there's, that code switching of like, okay, let me just, try to tame. Again, I'm a Latin woman. I can be very chill, but I can also be very fiery and very temperamental. And there is those moments of like, okay, wait a minute. I need to check myself, because this isn't the place for that. So I just want to thank you for sharing that, because it's not a normal part of my experience as someone who runs and races predominantly in Miami. But that doesn't mean it's something I should be blind to either. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing that, because it's very easy for us to get caught up in whatever our microcosm is and to think that we have no responsibility for anyone else. And I'm just trying to think of the photographer, just like, what the hell, man? Like, sorry, like I want to say the F word, but I won't. But it's still one of those things where it's like, this is very much your experience too. What makes your experience any less than anyone else's? And who are you? That person in that moment, they're acting as a gatekeeper for the sport. So it's just so frustrating and it's so angering. And I am just so incredibly disappointed that you had that experience, because I'm such an advocate. And when I hear stories like that, like I would always tell people, you want to get into running, go to a race. And the more I have conversations with people, I've had someone in a previous episode, she told me that she's a back of the pack runner and she's had races where they're starting to break down the finish area. And I'm like, well, never again am I going to tell people to sign up for a race, because I don't want that to be their experience. Instead, my recommendation is going to be, go find a run group, And if you don't find, like, it doesn't gel the first time around, keep looking. Your people are out there. Keep looking. So sorry, I had to share just a bunch of different ideas because it really really freaking pisses me off that this person who probably doesn't even understand the accomplishment that you're experiencing, like the work that you're doing, is someone that put themselves in a position to judge. So sorry. Okay, done.
Yeah, it's so wild, you know, because I grew up in Texas and I get confused all the time. Sometimes people think I am a woman of color, sometimes they think I'm a white woman. And even with that, I've had just experiences that blow my mind. You know, I had a guy on a trail tell me that this was a white utopia. He clearly was not pleased that a small brown girl was out on his trail, you know. And I really think that it's, you know, there's so much white men in this sport who want to keep it that way. And I think the sport was created by white people for white people. But like we already talked about, this is a part of who we are. You know, Indigenous folks were ultra runners long before this sport was started by white people. And I have the privilege, you know, like I said, I have a white father who I am very close with, but when I show up to a race that's primarily white folks, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know how the conversations are going to go. I don't know if folks are going to be friendly. I get asked a lot. I love running up mountains. I love running ridge lines. And I get asked a lot if I'm lost. And I'm like, do I look lost? Because I'm very at home and I'm very smart. When I go out alone, somebody always knows where I am. I also know what I'm doing. I am very proud of my accomplishments. And it's funny the assumptions that are made because I'm female, because I'm a woman of color. I will say, though, I just did a self-supported run around Mount Hood last month with a good friend of mine. We did 42 miles in 13 hours with like over 10,000 feet of gain. And that I have to give credit to these folks because that was the first time we encountered so many thru hikers. They were all white and all of them stopped and cheered us on and were just like blown away. They were like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never had this experience. Not a single person wasn't just so impressed and like cheering for us. And I just thought, wow, if this is just, can you imagine if this is just how it could be for people like us all of the time? So yeah.
Yeah. And I think, okay, the question I have now is, because I'm trying to follow a thought, but I need the answer to this question first. How is the trail running community different from the road running community? I know that's like a big question, but it's like I am trying to create a picture so that people can understand, like, what is it that we're talking about and where, like, how are these differences amplified between the two, right? Because I'm thinking of like, you know, we can go as far as a marathon, right? Like your road marathon may have thousands of runners, whereas a trail marathon is what, maybe hundreds of runners. I don't, you know, I am concrete jungle, Miami, Florida. So I do a lot of road racing. So my familiarity with trail running is very small. So I'm curious for you, for the two of you in the community, how, I guess it's just that. Can you paint the picture for how the two communities are different?
Well, for me, I really saw that the road and trail communities were different when, you know, I started on roads a couple years ago, and I kind of had this idea of when you run the entire time. There's no walking, there's no stopping. It's, you just continue to go. And there's also this like sort of competitiveness. And during the pandemic, I gained 30 pounds, and that's still hanging around. And I really thought that was going to be a hindrance and be one of the reasons why I can't do distance anymore. You know, I'm too big, but that is not an excuse anymore. I've done so much at this weight with this body. So, but feeling a little more, and then moving to the trail community, feeling a little more comfortable with my body on the trails, because I don't feel that sort of competitiveness. I don't feel like I need to run every moment during the race. And I love trail races because, you know, you can just hang out at an aid station for a bit, depending on cutoff. You can just hang at the aid station and eat snacks, and they have really good snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I agree. I dine at aid stations. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's one thing that, again, here, at least here in Miami, and if you all have resources for me, I will welcome them with a very grateful heart. Because here in Miami, there really isn't, I can't think of anyone who runs trails here. I think maybe even the closest trail to me is maybe a 45-minute drive away. So the accessibility piece of trails just isn't there for me. Like, it's a lot easier to just go outside. And if I want to run trail, I'm just going to run on grass, right? Like find the grass around the neighborhoods and kind of do that. So thank you for answering that, because that's something that, again, my experience with road racing, it seems like it's a totally different crowd. And when I talk to people who either, you know, coach trail runners or who are trail runners themselves, they said something that you mentioned, Kelsey. They're like, we can just hike and it's fun and it's still trail running and we can take our time. We can eat our, you know, boiled salted potatoes and things like that. Like, those are the things that I hear from them. So thank you for answering that. I'm going to ask a question. And again, these are questions that just enlighten me. And thank you in advance for your patience in answering it. So dirtbags, what does that mean within the running community? Because when I initially hear dirtbags, I'm like, oh, that's a jerk. Like, that's someone that's mean. But I think within the trail running community, it's got a totally different meaning. So can you tell me what dirtbags means to you? And then also just the importance of language when it comes to running.
Yeah, I remember when I started with Dirtbag Runners, and you know, I got the gear and all the stuff, and a coworker saw me and they're like, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a dirtbag, and they're like, what? Oh my goodness, no, you're not. You're such a great person. No, that's not what I mean. So, dirtbags is a person who likes to be outside, outdoors, and just doesn't mind getting dirty. I think that's as simply as you can make it. That's what a dirtbag is. And that's kind of how I think of our team. You know, being on trails, you do have to have some level of comfortability, getting dirty, and falling, and you know, just continuing on, because you're gonna be covered, especially in the summer, you're gonna be covered with sweat, sunscreen, bugs. You know, it's not pretty. It's not as polished as road running.
Yeah, so for me, dirtbag came from, so I am a rock climber. I love climbing more than running, to be honest. And dirtbag is a term that is widely used amongst the climbing community. You're a dirtbag, you're sleeping out at what they call the crag, where the routes are, or the boulders, and you're climbing, and you're maybe only can afford PB&Js, and you don't have a job, but you're climbing really hard, you're a dirtbag. And again, climbing, I think maybe at times even more so than trail running, is such a painfully white space, truly created by white people for white people. And I have had the honor to be a bit disruptive in this space. I opened and ran a climbing gym in Salt Lake City. And for me, taking that term was empowering. It was me saying, despite my gender, despite how I look, that I too can be strong and brave and roll up to a trail and sleep in the dirt with Kelsey, run hard. Maybe we don't shower for a few days. I still eat a lot of PB&Js because I work for myself and a nonprofit. I don't make a lot of money, but I feel very rich. And again, that's also very much a sign of my privilege, right? That I have been able to have those experiences and do so in a safe way. But it is also a term that a lot of my community, like Kelsey said, we're like, why are you calling yourself this? This is terrible. But I think for her and I, it's something that we feel empowered by, and we feel like, you know, maybe sometimes we do really embrace our feminine side. We like to dress up, but I think more than that, we just like to get dirty and be free, you know.
Yeah, I love that. Because language defines, right? Like language defines us. Words have the power to uplift us. They have the power to destroy us. But words are also just something we create. We add the meaning to it. And both of you are reclaiming that word, which I think is very beautiful.
And one thing that I try to make sure to do when I talk about the team is I use a capital D, a big, big dirt bags, because to make it a proper noun rather than an adjective.
And I do too want to, you know, honor, we do actually have a lot of community folks who really don't like the name, and I can totally understand and respect that. And it's been something that I think has been very hard for Kelsey and I to let go. But knowing that this is really their team, we're here to serve this community. Despite our resistance to changing the name, we did file the nonprofit, the official business, under a new name called We Run Long. And we can already see how excited folks are about that. We haven't said that we are officially changing from Dirtbags Run to We Run Long, but it is officially in place. And what I also love about it is that came from Kelsey, and her last name is Long. So I think it's really beautiful. It's the first time I've felt just as excited about Dirtbags Run.
I love that.
Yeah.
And synchronistic. Again.
Yeah. Well, the name, our team name, we had official Dirtbags Run, and then sort of like a tagline, because Dirtbag Runners has a tagline, run free, get dirty. So we wanted to do something similar. And We Run Long was actually first in Navajo, my native language, Nidzago Nadija. So we use the English version when we're really like, talking to other people and talking about it, because Navajo's not widely known.
Layers upon layers of like if you're looking to know what path to take, these are the signs that are like, it's okay. Like it's okay to pivot and change. All right. I have 4 more questions for you all. First question is, what message would you have to new runners or runners that are new to trail running, ultra running?
I would say oh, sorry, you got okay. I would say find your community. It might take, like you said earlier, it might take a few tries, but they are out there. We're out here. You're welcome here. And make sure that you do feel safe. Make sure you are physically, emotionally, and mentally safe, but don't give up. It's honestly like finding your right therapist, right? Your people are out there and they're waiting for you. So that's what I would say for me would be the most important.
Yeah, and I mean, there are many dangers that you can find online, but there's also some really great people you can find out there too. Rebecca and I became internet friends before we became friends in real life. And we connected with our team that way too, because we were spread out all over the country. One of the initiatives we had when we first started the team was monthly calls, so that before we got to our race in November, we knew each other. We had a relationship with each other, so that when we came together, it wasn't 20 strangers coming together. It was 20 friends just meeting and actually being able to hug each other. So, I mean, being able, I would say, if you have social media, if you are comfortable with that, to see if there are use that to see if there are local groups that you can connect with, because it really worked for us.
What message would you have specifically for BIPOC runners?
Come join us. Find us at Dirtbags Run on Instagram. But no, truly, I mean, there is so much, running is actually very expensive. And there are incredible groups out there who provide beginner meetups, who provide shoe demos. So I think it just goes back to find your people. If it's not us, we're here to help you find those people. And, like another great example, Wasatch Trails Collective, shout out to them. They are in Salt Lake City, as you can imagine, very, very white city. And they are a BIPOC group. They speak Spanish and they do such a good job at their local meetups. They provide shoes for folks, race entries. So there is a group, maybe it's not as close to your area, but they are out there and we love to help connect people to those groups too.
Same.
You're like, it's the same. Okay. What do you all have coming up that we can support or celebrate you in?
Well, today is September 14, and I am on the 23rd. I'm going to be running my first triathlon. So yay. And then we have our team event in November.
Yes. And so I mentioned we have two sponsors, Arc'teryx and Tailwind. They are wonderful and they do give us funds every year. And we still have to do fundraising because, like Kelsey mentioned, what we provide for our community is fully comped race entry, bibs, hotel, and food and travel within race weekend. As you can imagine, that's a lot of money, especially this year. Our race is in Washington, and I know it's going to be wonderful. And I'm also like, we are never doing a race in the PNW again. This is so expensive. But and we're going to expand next year. Next year is going to look very, very different because now that we are a nonprofit and we have these folks funding us, we want to empower local leaders and meetups and races. And there's not a whole lot yet we have to share on that end because we're just starting to build it out. But all the funding we receive, Kelsey and I, we don't get paid to do this, and we put a lot of time into it. and all the money goes toward the community. So we will bring back our GoFundMe in the next couple of weeks here, and keep a lookout for it, Dirtbags Run. And all of that money goes toward the community and providing opportunities like this.
All right. Final question is just remind us, you've said it a few times, but remind us, where can we follow you and get more information about each of you and Dirtbags Run? Whoever wants to go.
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at long, Kelsey, and the team is at Dirtbags Run.
And I am at Grounding Climbs. And you can also obviously find me with the team. And I should shout out, I also am an ambassador for Run for All Women. Definitely check them out. Kelsey mentioned that she is a Rising Hearts advocate. Definitely check out at Rising Hearts on Instagram too.
All right. Well, thank you. I've wanted to talk about so many other things, but I'm glad we talked about the things that we did, because you two are doing such incredible work. And as always, I just feel so grateful that I get to talk to people who saw a need for change and then did something about it. Because oftentimes we can see that something needs to change, but we'll be like, someone else will do it. Someone else will worry about it. So I just want to applaud you both, and just applaud you both for doing what you're doing, because I can only imagine how challenging it can be when you're navigating your own lives and then you're taking on 20 teammates or however many teammates plus the sponsors. There's a lot on both of your plates. So thank you for doing it. The future thanks you. And then the past, I think, can breathe a sigh of relief, because both of you exist and you're doing this. So I just want to thank you both for that. Do we have any final words before we log off?
Thank you so much for having us. It means a lot. This team, Kelsey, are the best things to ever happen in my life. So most times it still feels strange for me to speak about it, because I feel like they deserve all the spotlight. But thank you for reaching out to Kelsey and just supporting us.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such a great talk. And, Rebecca and I are constantly talking. We do the Friends podcast where we send long voice notes to each other all the time. So, I do hear her voice quite often, but we don't do podcasts together. This, I think, the second time. So it was so refreshing to hear her talk about our team, and I love this. Thank you for letting us do this.
Yeah, but I don't deserve thanks. I will take it, because I get to sit here and have these conversations because what the two of you are creating. And my goal with the podcast, for those of you who have been listening, and if you haven't gotten it yet, it really is to uplift the voices of women within the running community. And this season is about highlighting those voices that are working to create change or working to redefine what it means to be a woman within the running space, to redefine what it means to show up at these races, to show up at events and see yourself seen, right? Like that's something that's so incredibly important. And again, I'm here because you all exist. And then I get the privilege of being like, hey, can I talk to you? Yes, cool. Let's get this done. So it's really, the gratitude is all for the two of you. But thank you. And everyone, thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.